MMORPG set in the world of Westeros is reportedly in development from the same publisher as hit shooter The Finals. I'm Brennan Sem for the New Wave Nerds. Let's get right into the news. Our article today is written by Ryan Dinsdale for IGN.com. It reads, Game of Thrones is reportedly the basis of a massively multiplayer online role-playing game set from the Finals publisher Nexon. Now, we played Finals for quite a while. It was definitely one that we enjoyed. I really personally enjoyed the traversal. It is a 3v3v3. It's a three-person squad PvP shooter game where each individual player chooses an archetype, a build to play that affords them certain abilities and different characteristics and attributes. I thought the game was incredibly fun. It was a little limited in the sense that there weren't truly that many game modes or different ways to play. But what they released was incredibly fun. It's a fully destructible environment, and it's a sort of bank and protect while the deposit goes through style of game. It's very enjoyable. It's incredibly fast paced. I thought the graphics were very well done. I truly enjoyed everything about it, and honestly, I had forgotten that it existed for a while because we hadn't played it in quite some time. But it was definitely fun. I enjoy it. I think it was just a free game. I don't think we had to pay anything for it except for the optional cosmetic stuff that Spencer ultimately paid for, but I did not. But it was definitely a fun game, and it's a short download. I want to say it was only like 16 or so gigs. So if you've got the space, you've got the time. I'm sure they're still releasing periodic patches and updates for it, but I definitely recommend it. We definitely had a lot of fun playing it, and maybe one of these days we'll come back to it. It seems like one that in the same way that every once in a while we'll return to Rogue Company because it's a free game that is fairly limited in download size and is still moderately enjoyable. I think we may return to the Finals someday. And if we do, we'll be sure to stream it, so stick around and stay tuned. Let's get back to the article here. Quote, sources told Redanian Intelligence that the game will at least partially be set in the north, with locations such as Winterfell and the Wall both featured. It will reportedly take place around seasons 4 and 5 of the hit HBO series, when Roose Bolton is Warden of the North, and Jon Snow and Sam Tarly are still posted at the Wall. So, spoiler alert from the Game of Thrones series, despite the fact that the series has been over for, I want to say like 6 years. I feel like the last season was in 2018, but I could be wrong. That's just off the top of the dome here. But spoiler alert for that. No, because season 5... that would have been, obviously 3 seasons before the end of the show, so 3 years presumably before 2018, but not important. Is that true? Yeah, no, because that was the year. Nah, not important. The timeline doesn't necessarily matter. So spoiler alert, I guess, if you haven't seen the show yet, like Shade, despite the fact that I've told him 1,000,001 times that it's absolutely worth it, and he started it and it likes it, but not the point. So this would be prior to Jon Snow and his untimely demise, where he shuffles loose his mortal coil, right? This is immediately before that, I think, because is it at the end of season 5 where Jon Snow gets stabbed in the chest, or is it season 6? It may actually be season 6. I guess that part doesn't necessarily matter because my point still stands that the game will take place before that. I think it's the end of season 5 where he dies. Maybe not. I'm trying to look at the thing here now. Oh no, yes, it is. The end of season 5 is where he dies. So this is prior to that. So then I believe he is captain of the Night's Watch at this point then, right? Because he is captain. He succeeds J.R. Mormont, becomes captain of the Night's Watch. Then that's when they betray him, right? And he dies, and then he ultimately comes back to life and says, I've lived out my thing, right? And then, eventually he goes back and becomes the captain of the Night's Watch again. So this is during his tenure, or I guess maybe this is still before it then, if the game reportedly takes place around seasons 4 and 5. So it could be between 4 and 5. It could be before season 4, I suppose. Or no, I guess not. I need to rewatch the show, or I suppose maybe reread the books to remind myself when exactly it is that Roose Bolton becomes Warden of the North. It's obviously post-Red Wedding, right? No, so then, yeah, I guess theoretically this could take place in the time frame between season 3 and 4, I guess. I don't know. Interesting. I would definitely like to go back and rewatch the show and reread the books to find out the context and what else is going on around this time period, because that's going to give us some clues, presumably, as to what the actual story campaign is going to be. And speaking of the story, why don't we just head back into the article here? It says, players will allegedly explore Westeros through a story campaign threaded throughout the MMO, coming across the aforementioned characters and others as they do, according to Redanian Intelligence. The HBO show cast apparently will not return for the game, and players will create a brand new character for themselves with male and female options. So, I mean, obviously, an MMO set in Westeros, the campaign is clearly going to take you through all of the Seven Kingdoms, right? What I hope is that they use this game to sort of explore what is going on in the universe apart from what were shown in the series, right? So the things that happen in the background. I would really much enjoy the story of this campaign, the story of this game running parallel to the series, right? So maybe we I guess I can't necessarily remember any explicit story beats from seasons 4 or 5, but like the I guess the marriage of Tom and Marjorie, right? I would like to see the events of the campaign of the game take place alongside those. So maybe we get glimpses of the events of the actual story, but I would like it to be fairly removed. I personally would like if there were, little cameos, little hints as to what's going on in the story, but if the game itself would be relatively standalone. I don't think that's what they're going to do. It's seeming like they're going to thread the main characters of the show into the story in a fairly direct way. I don't know if that means in the sense that like these are going to be quest givers, or if these are just going to be like characters that you see often. Maybe you report to like Aemon Targaryen, say, and he's the quest giver, and while you're there, or no, is he alive at this point? No, he is alive, because he doesn't die, I don't think, until Sam and Gilly, the group of them, they begin to make their way towards, is it King's Landing? Or no, because they're going to, right, because this is when they send Sam to what's the place called? It's like Hightower, I think, isn't it? Where they train the maesters. Is it Meister? I've always read it as Maester, but I think some people say it as Meister. I'm not 100% sure. Maester rolls off the tongue more easily for me. I think it's Hightower. I could be completely wrong in that. I haven't. Whoops. I suppose I should put Game of Thrones here. No, Hightower is the house. So where are they based then? Old Town. That's right. Oh no, Hightower is the place, but Old Town, I believe, is where like the city, I suppose, where the maesters are educated. Yeah, home of the Order of the Maesters. There we go. So I think that's when Aemon dies, which I don't think happens until later, because that's when we get Sam, heading down to obviously begin his maester training, which I don't think we actually see until Oh man, no, where is it? Oh man, I gotta watch this show again. I really gotta watch this show again to see what these story beats are. But where I was going with that is I would like to see I would like to explore the places that we don't necessarily see in seasons 4 and 5 of the show, right? I would like to have the character, like an act of the story, maybe be down in Dorne, right? Exploring what's going on in there. Because in the series, in the HBO series, we don't necessarily see much out of the Dornishmen, out of House Martell. That's what they're called. We see very little of them, right? Mostly through Pedro Pascal. I think we barely even see Duran Martell, the actual. I don't know what his title is actually. Is he Prince Duran? I don't know. Not important, but in the books, House Martell is definitely up to a lot more stuff. I mean, there's a whole side plot where oh, Jiminy Christmas. What's the youngest one's name? Oh man, I don't remember, but there's like a whole plot where one of the young Martells is sent over to Essos. Is that what it's called? Oh man, I'm so out of touch, I guess, with the Game of Thrones lore. I have been for quite a while. I haven't read the books in forever. What am I trying to look up here? Map of Westeros. Let's see. And of course, the first one I click on, yeah, here we go, Essos. Yes, so I'm just going to show this here. I believe, I always forget that you can't really zoom in on Google in the same way. So here's Dorne. Is that really what it looks like? I thought it was a little more, not important. But here's vaguely where Dorne is. That marker, I can't really read it very well, and I don't know if you can either, but it says Sunspear. That's the seat of House Martell, right? And Prince Duran sends, I don't know if it's his son or if it's his nephew, somebody in line to go out to Essos, and I think the goal is to curry favor with Daenerys, so that Dorne can be the sort of foothold for her to regain control in Westeros. I think that's where it's left off. Is that what he's doing, or is it? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. Like I said, it's a very, like, they don't even necessarily touch it all that much. Pause in the books. It's something that I think the threads get started for in number 4, and then it gets addressed a little more in 5. But it's not focused on all that much. It's a side plot. Which I hope that he explores if we ever get a book 6, which is looking less and less likely as the years go on. But that's something that I hope we explore, because that was a really interesting plot point to me. And I understand in the series, there's only so much time. You can only explore so many things. But that's something that I really enjoyed in the book. I was sad in the book that we didn't get to see quite so much of it. That's actually one of the main reasons I want the next book, is to see how that specific thread pans out. Obviously, there are other things in the books that I would like to see as well, but for some reason, that one has always stuck in my mind. Maybe because I mostly watched the show. Maybe it's because I watched the show and the books sort of in tandem, and that was a plot line in the show that was completely, discarded. Understandably so, like I said, but it was discarded nonetheless. And so when I was reading the books and I saw this, maybe that's why I just want to see where it goes, because we haven't seen any of it, really. There was no take on it in the series, in the HBO series, that is. And in the books, it was only explored somewhat in a somewhat limited manner due to... again, the fact that it was a side plot in that book, and we haven't received the next one yet. So that's one thing that I would like to see from this game. I would like to see them explore something like that, or maybe we get to go see what's the seat of Casterly Rock. There we go. We would actually get to see a little bit of Casterly Casterly Rock, maybe. Because that's a destination that we hear quite a bit of in the series and the books, and yet both in the series and in the books, we hear about it much, but don't actually get to see it all that often. And so that's something that would be really interesting to me, to see the seat of Lannister power, or something. What's a different place? Highgarden, with Natalie, what's her name? Natalie Dormer, Lady Marjorie, House Tyrell. Yeah, I would really like to see a bit more of them as well. Maybe we can see some of Lady Olenna, right? Because in the series, I think seasons 4, 5, and 6 is when she goes to. I think that's when she goes to King's Landing, right? Because presumably that's when, after Joffrey's untimely death, that's when they. Does Olenna show up in King's Landing right away when Marjorie is there? For some reason, I don't really remember her. No, absolutely no. She's definitely in King's Landing then, because the Stark girl Sansa, Marjorie, and Lady Olenna have a discussion about King Joffrey, or is he king at this point? The soon-to-be King Joffrey, the heir apparent. They have a conversation about him in the garden. So clearly she's there then. And I think Joffrey dies. No, it's in season 4, isn't it? So likely then Lady Olenna would be in King's Landing. So that doesn't help, because I would like to see her a little bit in Highgarden, right? To get a little bit more of her and her scheming ways, and see her, or I guess maybe. Here's one thing that I think would be an interesting side quest, is if Lady Olenna is in Highgarden, and you maybe don't necessarily go to her, but you receive a quest in Highgarden, which is to go and find information, right, about what's going on, and from the information that you give to the Tyrells, that's the basis for them, working out their schemes and doing what they do in the series. That would be an interesting way. An interesting way to do that. But like I said, I think presumably the time in which this game takes place, the Lady Olenna is already at King's Landing, so that doesn't necessarily help. But something along those lines, that's, I think, the type of story that I would really be interested in seeing here. I just really hope that we don't spend all of our time in King's Landing and Winterfell and I guess I can't think of any other major hubs. I guess an interesting question is, are we going to be spending all of our time in is the main landmass just called? Yeah. Are we going to be spending all of our time in Westeros proper, or are we going to be going to Essos, right? Like, are we going to be, I would presume that we're going to have, some interaction with Daenerys, or with the Unsullied, or the Dothraki in some way. I think we kind of have to, right? It's sort of weird to have a Game of Thrones game and not have one of the main characters, arguably the main character of the whole series, right? That would be an interesting question. I would like to do a poll where you ask individual people and ask them who they think, if you had to pick one main character for the Song of Ice and Fire, who would it be? Obviously, the point of it is, mostly that there's multiple main characters, right? But if you had to pick one person around whom you think the story revolves, who would it be? Because there are a couple of obvious answers. I think looking at, again, okay, so spoilers for the final season of Game of Thrones here. I guess mostly the final episode. No, yeah, the final season here. There are a couple different arguments that could be made. I think you could argue for Arya, for Jon Snow, for obviously Daenerys, for Bran. I think those are probably the most logical arguments you could make if you're going to pick a single main character. I mean, Maybe you could argue Cersei, but I don't think so. I think obviously she's, a massive part, and in many ways, the story moves from her and through her and because of her. But I don't know. I feel like her main story beat sort of, her rising, I guess, to Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, if you can even say that, Queen of the Five Kingdoms, or however many it is at that point. Is it Five Kingdoms? Or would it be six? Because I guess maybe the North is the only place that's still in. Actually, no, because now that they would have Roose Bolton in there, so would she? Yeah, she would kind of technically be Queen of the Seven Kingdoms then. Yeah, I mean, technically the North is probably still in large part in revolt from the main populace and stuff, but I don't know. But anyways, my point there is that Cersei's storyline, her rising to be the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, at the end of the series, it feels a little bit like the C-level story, I guess, in a way that it's supposed to be the A-level story, but once you get to the end and go through and all of the plot points finish themselves, it feels like Cersei's story was more ancillary, in the sense that Cersei's rise to power, it feels much more like a prologue to Daenerys' story to me. Or maybe prologue isn't quite the right word, but her reign as queen and her, the end of her storyline, to me, just feels like supplemental information to Daenerys' story, as far as like the series itself goes. Man, that'd be interesting. Is it about Arya because she is ultimately the one who defeats the Night King? She is technically the person who saves the world, right? There's an argument that could be made that she is the main character. Obviously, Jon Snow, we'll go to Jon Snow second. Daenerys, because clearly, I mean, the entire series is, in large part, is about her rise from this, destitute, I guess, house, right? House Targaryen. She's like the last remaining member, right? And it's her journey from exile to becoming a queen, right? And then her ultimate descent into madness. There's certainly an argument that can be made that she is the main character of the story, in the sense that also without her coming to the North, even without Daenerys' arrival at the Wall at the penultimate moment, I guess, to save the forces of the North from obliteration and then gift them dragonfire or whatever. Without her doing that, then there's no way that Arya could have saved the world by killing the Night King, right? And obviously then Jon Snow, the argument could be made that he is the main character because the story in large part is about, it sort of revolves around his lineage, right? I mean, the event that brings us to where we are in the world is his birth in a fairly direct way, right? Because is not the war that results in Robert Baratheon being made king of the Seven Kingdoms, is not that precipitated by the fact that Rhaegar Targaryen steals Lyanna Stark and impregnates her, right? And that is, the pregnancy that brings about Jon Snow, right? And then and then obviously this is the most, obviously, and then of course he kills Daenerys. And then the most spoilery part of this spoiler section about, the discussion of who's the main character of Game of Thrones, obviously Bran Stark. I mean, the first act of the story finishes with him being thrown off the balcony, right? I mean, that is very clearly the first important moment of the series. Wouldn't it be? Isn't that the first major story beat in the whole thing? I mean, obviously before that, we have Robert Baratheon asking Ned Stark to be Hand of the King, right? Which is obviously a very major story beat. But I think, honestly, I don't think... Okay, here's an interesting question. Which is more consequential in this timeline? Is it the fact that Ned Stark accepts Robert Baratheon's request to be Hand of the King? Or is it Bran's being thrown from the tower? Right, because obviously Ned becoming Hand of the King is what causes him to investigate the death of Jon Arryn. He learns about the true lineage of Joffrey Baratheon, and about how the whole reign is illegitimate, right? The fair of hair versus, whatever, however they describe it, coal-haired or whatever. Is that more consequential, or is it Bran being thrown from the balcony? Because after that, obviously, that is the thing that allows Bran to become the three-eyed raven, right? Without him being thrown from the tower, I find it hard to believe that he could have been able to... I think that's the whole point of it, right? Is that he needed to lose the ability to walk so that he could learn and gain the ability to fly and to see. That's interesting. And then obviously Bran's death is what causes the Lady Catelyn to sort of go insane and cause pretty much all of the major problems. Pretty much all of them, I mean, in her defense, she's a mother and her kid got thrown out of a building, so I don't blame her. But still. Let's get back to the article here, because we spent enough time discussing the story here. So back to the article, it says, quote, "The game was described as a package similar to The Elder Scrolls Online, though no release window for the alleged MMO was shared. IGN has asked Nexon for comment. Presumably they have not reached out yet, or they have not reached back out. Nexon, as well as publishing Embark Studios' hit shooter The Finals, has hundreds of millions of registered users across all its games, including Dungeon and Fighter, MapleStory, and Cartwriter. Despite having a critically acclaimed TV show based on a critically acclaimed ongoing novel series, Game of Thrones hasn't had much of a presence in the video game space. Beyond a handful of strategy games, an RPG based on the TV show was released in 2012 to poor reviews, while Telltale Games created an episodic story-heavy game in 2014 that failed to get a second season. That game was really fun, but I love all the Telltale games. Interestingly, a Game of Thrones MMORPG for mobile was announced by Netmarble in 2022, but hasn't been heard from since." And that's going to be all we have from the article here. So, I suppose final thoughts. I'm very interested to see where they take this and just how much this interacts and how this intermingles with the TV series. I definitely know that I'm going to be revisiting the show and at some point revisiting the book series, but I've got a whole other slew of things that I need to get to before I can restart that 5-series slog. I just finished Dune 1, so I need to read at least Dune Messiah and Children of Dune first. I'm probably not going to read the whole rest of the series yet, but I've got to at least finish those because those are what I have on hand. So it's going to be a while before I get to the books. But the series I could probably revisit relatively soon. I want to know what goes on in those seasons and in what way this game could intermingle with some of those things, and possibly some hints as to where I think the game itself is going to lead. What are some story beats that were dropped in the series that maybe could be revisited in the game? What are things that I would like to see more? I'm definitely interested in that. I'm glad to see we've got some more coming out of the Song of Ice and Fire property. We've obviously got this game. We have House of Dragons Season 2 gets released in June, I want to say June of 24 this year. Just slightly over a month. That's crazy. I got to finish the first season of that then. We also recently got the announcement that the Dunk and Egg series, what do they call it? The Hedge Knight, that had cast its title characters, Sir Duncan the Tall and Egg, which is, I'm pretty sure Aegon Targaryen, but I don't know which Targaryen, so just saying Aegon doesn't exactly, give you much to go off of. There's about 50 million of them. They don't exactly have the most original names. Notably, the Jon Snow TV series, I believe, has been axed completely. There may be a chance that they'll revisit in the old days, but from what it sounds like, they're axing it for now with the hope that they will come back to it at some point. I would like to, if we're going to wait to do it, I would like to wait to do it until Jon Snow has got Kit Harington, that is, has got some good gray in his beard and hair. I think that would be an interesting time of his life to explore and see what it's like after he's been on the wall for 20 years or whatever. But that is where we're going to leave it today. Make sure that you comment down below what you want to see from this game. What are some story beats that you would like to see explored? Maybe you have a better memory of seasons 4 and 5 than I do. What are some things that some beats that take place in the series that you would like to see expanded upon in this game? So comment down below, leave your thoughts. Make sure that you like and subscribe for more content just like this, and we will be back here tomorrow with another news story, and we'll see you guys then.